chosen one. Listen closely. Heaven has been waiting for this very moment, the moment you finally stopped running and started walking in His will, the moment your spirit whispered yes to the voice that has called you since before your birth. The sound of that obedience has pierced the heavens, and all of creation responds. There is a celebration unfolding right now, in the unseen realm, not because you are perfect, but because you finally aligned yourself with the perfect will of God. Every angel that has watched over your journey, every messenger that has guarded your steps through storms and tears, now rejoices with unspeakable joy. Heaven's light bursts forth like lightning through eternity. Trumpets echo across the courts of glory. The voice of the Father fills all of heaven with the sound of triumph, because you finally understood. Obedience is greater than sacrifice, and surrender is the highest form of worship. You may think it was a small act, a quiet decision in the middle of your ordinary day, but in heaven, it was the sound of prophecy fulfilled. Every delay, every heartbreak, every unanswered question was leading to this moment of divine recognition. The silence that once surrounded you wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every unanswered prayer was God shaping your heart for this exact step. You didn't stumble into obedience by accident. You were drawn by design. The Spirit had been stirring the waters of your heart, waiting for the moment you would respond. And when you finally did, all of heaven erupted in joy. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verse 10, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. That joy is about you. It's not distant, it's not symbolic. Right now, as you read these words, heaven's choir is lifting songs of victory over your name. The same angels that carried your prayers through years of silence are now dancing to the sound of your surrender. This is the secret few. Understand, heaven doesn't celebrate achievement. It celebrates alignment. You may not have reached every goal. You may still feel uncertain. But heaven isn't looking for perfection. It's looking for obedience. And when you gave God your yes, you gave heaven its reason to sing. The throne room itself glows brighter. The elders bow lower. The saints raise their voices higher. Because one life has returned to divine rhythm. One heart, yours, has begun to beat in time with heaven's heartbeat. The King of Glory smiles, not because of your strength, but because you allowed His strength to work through your weakness. You are no longer wandering. You are walking. Each step you take in obedience sends ripples through eternity. Chains you never saw are breaking. Curses that lingered in your bloodline are losing power. The heavens have recognized your name as one marked by surrender. And now, something in you begins to shift. Peace begins to settle. Joy begins to rise. The weight you carried for years starts to lift, because heaven has released new grace over your path. This is what happens when you choose the will of the Father over the noise of the world. The universe itself bends in your favor. Look around. Things may still seem ordinary, but everything has changed. Heaven's atmosphere now surrounds you. Every step is guided. Every word is measured. You are no longer lost. You are commissioned. The Spirit of God now walks with you, not as a distant whisper, but as a present companion. So, take this moment seriously. Do not dismiss it as emotion or coincidence. This is a divine intersection, a holy appointment between your obedience and heaven's response. You are stepping into a flow of favor that obedience unlocks. What you felt breaking inside you was not loss, it was rebirth. And now, as heaven rejoices, let earth bear witness. Let this moment become your public declaration. I will walk in His will. Every time you choose faith over fear, you echo heaven's song. Every time you forgive, trust, or wait, you release another wave of angelic celebration. If this word stirs your spirit, don't scroll past it. Like this message to seal it. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that obedience still moves heaven. And comment 333 below as a prophetic sign that you have stepped into the rhythm of His will. Heaven is roaring with joy because you finally walked in His will. And from this moment forward, every breath you take carries heaven's echo. The path ahead may shake, but your steps are anointed. Walk boldly. Heaven is still rejoicing over you. You remember the silent years, those long, unending nights where heaven seemed quiet and prayers echoed back unanswered. There were days when you questioned if God still saw you, if His promises had expired, or if somehow you had wandered too far from His plan. Yet even in the silence, He was near. What you called delay was divine preparation. Every hidden season was heaven's workshop, molding you into the vessel He always intended you to be. In those years, you learned the weight of waiting. You discovered that silence is not absence, it's strategy. When heaven is silent, it's not because God has forgotten you, but because He is forming something inside you that words alone cannot shape. The world around you was moving fast. People were succeeding. Doors were opening for others, and yet you remained still. That stillness wasn't punishment. It was protection. There were moments when the loneliness grew heavy, when your faith trembled under pressure. You wondered if obedience was even worth it. But in that stillness, God was separating your desires from distractions. He was teaching you to hear the whisper beneath the noise. Every unanswered prayer was an invitation to trust Him more deeply. The pain was real, but so was His presence. There is a kind of strength that only silence can teach, the strength to believe when nothing moves, to hold on when no sign appears, to worship when everything feels empty. Those who have walked through such nights carry a fire that cannot be extinguished. You are one of them. You carry the proof that heaven's delay is not denial, it's design. Every quiet season is a conversation between God and destiny. While you were hidden, heaven was speaking your name in the throne room. While you cried in secret, angels were being dispatched to guard your future. You thought you were standing still, but in truth, heaven was moving everything around you into alignment. You may not realize it yet, but your wilderness was holy ground. The silence taught you to listen. The isolation taught you to discern. You learned to walk by faith, not sight. And though your eyes saw nothing changing, your spirit was growing stronger each day. It was in those quiet places that you discovered how to hear the heartbeat of God. The Word of God declares in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." That purpose was hidden in every waiting season. It was there in the tears, in the prayers whispered through exhaustion, in the moments you almost gave up. What you lost was not meant to destroy you, it was meant to prune you. Every closed door protected your calling. Every disappointment redirected your path toward destiny. When heaven seems silent, it is never because God has stopped speaking. He is preparing you to recognize his voice above all others. He hides you until the noise fades, until your heart beats in sync with his will. And when the silence ends, you emerge, unshaken, refined like gold in the fire. Those years of preparation were heaven's gift, even though they didn't feel like it. Without them, you would not carry the weight of the glory that now rests upon your life. The wilderness stripped away pride, fear, and dependence on others' approval. It left you with one truth, that his will is enough. Now you can look back and understand. Every silent night was heaven's whisper saying, "Wait, I'm not done yet." Those seasons you once called barren were actually blooming beneath the surface. God was planting faith deep within you, faith that no storm could uproot. So do not despise the silent years. They were sacred. Heaven's joy today is built on your perseverance. Yesterday, the tears you cried became the language heaven understood best, the language of surrender. And through it all, the Father was watching, smiling quietly, knowing that one day you would step into his will fully, and all of heaven would erupt in joy. You were never forgotten during those silent years. You were being written into eternity's script. Every unanswered prayer became preparation for the stage you now stand upon heaven's light, revealing what was hidden in darkness. Now, the silence has turned to song. Every whisper you once released in pain has become melody in heaven's chorus, echoing through eternity as proof that endurance births divine strength. What felt like stillness was sacred movement. Heaven was aligning time, people, and purpose so that when you stepped forward, creation itself would respond in recognition of divine timing fulfilled. There was a whisper before the breakthrough, faint to human ears, but thunderous in heaven. It wasn't wrapped in drama. It wasn't announced by crowds, but it carried a divine command. Hold on one more day. You didn't know it, but that whisper changed everything. It was the moment heaven's timing collided with your faith. That whisper was not random. It was heaven's signal. It came after seasons of silence to test if your spirit could still discern God's tone. The world is loud, but the divine rarely shouts. The voice of destiny often comes wrapped in stillness. That's why few hear it, because few wait long enough to listen. Yet you did. You stayed. You believed. Heaven saw that when you obeyed that small, quiet prompting, the entire unseen realm took notice. The winds began to bow, the chains began to shake. You didn't see it immediately, but your obedience caused a spiritual ripple that no force of darkness could stop. You didn't just hear a voice, you aligned with eternity. That whisper was heaven's way of saying, "You're ready. Ready to step out of survival and into assignment. Ready to trust not what you see, but what you sense." The whisper was not just comfort, it was commissioning. It meant that your heart was finally tuned to heaven's frequency, able to respond without hesitation. You see, before every great breakthrough, there's a moment of divine stillness. The enemy tries to fill it with doubt, but heaven fills it with instruction. You chose to trust the stillness. That choice became the doorway. The strength that followed didn't come from clarity, it came from surrender. The Word of God reveals in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 12, "And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper." Oh, that gentle whisper is where God hides his greatest power, not in chaos, not in crowds, but in closeness. When you heard that still voice, you weren't just being comforted, you were being called. Every great move of God begins with that quiet conviction, that stirring in the spirit that refuses to fade. It wasn't just another thought, it was instruction from heaven. And when you obeyed, things began to align. People, opportunities, doors all started responding to that one decision. The whisper guided you out of confusion and into clarity. Now you understand why the noise had to fade. God needed you to hear him clearly. The whisper before your breakthrough wasn't weakness, it was strategy. It required faith, not feeling. It required focus, not approval. And because you trusted it, you walked straight into what others are still praying for. The beauty of it all is this: the whisper didn't just guide you once, it continues to lead you daily. The same voice that called you out of the storm is now shaping your future. The same whisper that told you to hold on is now saying, move forward. You've learned to live by divine sound. And now, heaven can trust you with more. Because when you can follow a whisper, you can carry a roar. You've proven faithful in the quiet. So now you are ready for the loud, ready for the stage. The calling, the mantle, the whisper before the breakthrough was your initiation into destiny. Comment, speak, Lord, below, because when you write those words, you are declaring that your spirit is open to hear again. You're not just typing, you're responding. You're saying, I'm listening for the next instruction. That simple act becomes prophetic alignment, inviting heaven to speak fresh direction into your life. The whisper that began your breakthrough is not finished. It's just beginning a new conversation between you and God. Listen closely, because the next word you hear might unlock everything you've been waiting for. That whisper is not fading, it is deepening. Each time you quiet your mind, heaven speaks clear. What once sounded distant now feels like breath, intimate, personal, unmistakably divine direction. You begin to understand that guidance isn't always grand. Sometimes it's gentle. Heaven doesn't rush, it refines. The more you listen, the more clearly destiny unveils itself before your eyes. Every whisper carries instruction. Every instruction carries transformation. What you hear in the stillness becomes the seed that shapes your tomorrow. That's why discernment is heaven's language for those who truly trust. So stay still enough to hear again. Don't chase noise, chase nearness. For in every whisper lies a doorway. And in every doorway, a new level of divine partnership awaits you. Destiny did not find you by accident. It has been tracing your steps since the beginning, even before you could understand it. Purpose was circling your life, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The day you finally said yes to God's call, the atmosphere shifted. It was not a decision of emotion, but of surrender. That one word, yes, echoed through the unseen realm like a trumpet, announcing that you had crossed a threshold few ever reach. For years, heaven had watched the struggle within you, the tug of war between comfort and calling. Every time you tried to blend in, purpose whispered louder. Every time you tried to ignore it, circumstances pressed harder. You were never meant to fit in because you were designed to stand apart. The unease you felt wasn't failure, it was divine tension, pulling you toward what you were born to do. When destiny finally found you, it wasn't with a shout, but with a still confirmation in your soul. It felt like peace and fire at the same time, quiet. yet unstoppable. You may have thought it began in that single moment, but it was the culmination of every trial, every prayer, every silent tear. Each experience was a page in the story heaven was writing through your life. The world calls it coincidence, but heaven calls it orchestration. The right doors opened, the right words were spoken, the right people appeared, not by chance, but by design. God's timing is rarely early and never late. It moves according to divine rhythm, and when your yes aligned with His plan, the rhythm of heaven began to flow through your life like a river that could not be stopped. The voice of God thundered in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Nah, that truth is not limited to prophets of old. It is alive in you. You were known before you were named, chosen before you were seen. Destiny did not begin when you believed it, began when He spoke. You simply stepped into what was already written. That realization changes everything. You no longer chase purpose, you walk in it. You no longer question your worth. Heaven already validated you. When you said yes, the weight of uncertainty began to lift. Things you once feared began to make sense. Old habits started to lose power because they could no longer exist in the new dimension of your calling. The shift wasn't visible at first, but your spirit knew it. You began to crave purity, depth, and alignment more than applause. That's how heaven confirms that destiny has taken hold. Your appetite changes before your environment does. The battle you fought before this moment was not to destroy you, but to prepare you. God knew that destiny requires endurance. You had to be emptied of dependence on people, positions, and pride. Destiny only manifests through surrendered hearts. And because you surrendered, heaven could finally release what it had been holding for you. The same angels that once guarded your waiting season are now assigned to your movement. They go before you to prepare the way, and behind you to protect what's been planted. You are no longer standing still. You are walking in divine acceleration. The steps that once felt uncertain are now ordered. The doors that were locked have begun to open, not because of effort, but because of alignment. Destiny doesn't remove struggle, it redeems it. Every wound you carry becomes a weapon in your hand. Every scar becomes a story that reveals God's faithfulness. That's why destiny feels heavy. It carries history inside it. But the weight is not meant to crush you. It's meant to anchor you. You now understand that destiny is not about position or power, but obedience. The world measures greatness by visibility. Heaven measures it by surrender. Your destiny was sealed the moment your obedience outweighed your fear. That's why heaven rejoiced when you walked in His will, because your yes proved love was stronger than hesitation. You've stepped into a new chapter, one that doesn't depend on validation or clarity. You walk now with divine confidence, not pride, but peace. You know that what God starts, He sustains. The path ahead may not always be smooth, but it will always be sacred. For destiny found you, and you answered. Heaven is still celebrating that moment, the moment you finally became who you were always meant to be. When your obedience reached heaven, a sound went out so pure and full of surrender that even the angels paused to listen. It wasn't the sound of perfection, it was the sound of willingness. That sound moved through the heavens like fragrance, and before the throne of God, your obedience became an offering. In that moment, Angels carried word of your surrender. They ascended and descended with joy, spreading the news. The chosen one has said yes. Heaven leaned closer to earth. Every promise written over your life began to stir. The waiting was over. The movement had begun. You may not realize how powerful your yes truly was. One act of obedience can move heaven, shift generations, and alter the course of history. When you surrendered, you gave heaven permission to invade your world. You unlocked doors you didn't even know existed. Every chain that once bound your family line began to lose its grip. You didn't need to shout or fight. All you did was obey. And now, heaven rejoices not because of what you did, but because of who you've become. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 9, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no heart has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him." That's what's happening now. Preparation, meeting purpose. Heaven had been holding something back, waiting for your obedience to unlock it. And now that you've walked in his will, the release has begun. But there's something beautiful about heaven's rhythm when it pours into you. It always flows through you. Blessing is never meant to stop. It's meant to circulate. Just as rain falls not to flood, but to nourish, heaven's flow through your life becomes the way others are refreshed. That's why you feel this pull to share what you've received. Because revelation multiplies when it's released. Every time you share the message, every time you spread light through your words, your repost, your testimony, you're sowing divine seed into someone else's breakthrough. If this word has touched your heart, let it move through you. Like this message, not to feed numbers, but as a small candle lifted toward heaven. Each click becomes a spark of light, joining countless others. Share it not for fame, but as a bridge of hope. Somewhere, someone stands in the dark, waiting for the same whisper that found you. Your share becomes their sunrise. Subscribe not as a follower of a page, but as a traveler choosing to walk the same illuminated path. Every step keeps you close to the voice that awakens purpose. And if you feel led to go deeper to help carry this message to more hearts, then consider giving as you are able. Think of it not as payment, but as planting. To donate is to become a silent gardener in God's vineyard. You water unseen roots so that fruit may grow in souls you'll never meet. You're not paying for words, you're investing in eternity. When a farmer plants a seed, he does not pay the soil, he participates in growth. In the same way, your offering becomes part of heaven's flow, a quiet, sacred act that says, "Lord, let this word keep changing lives, even when I'm not there." Oh, you are not required to give. You are invited to sow. Every seed planted in love becomes a ripple that reaches souls you may never meet. When you give from a place of peace, you become part of heaven's story, the story of light spreading in darkness, of hope rising where despair once ruled. So if you feel that gentle stirring in your heart, that quiet whisper saying, "Be part of this flow," follow it. Do what peace allows, and let heaven handle the rest. Your yes already moved heaven. Your willingness to give now helps move earth. Let your heart stay open, your spirit generous, and your hands ready to bless. Because generosity is not about money, it's about motion. Heaven rejoiced over your obedience. Now, let your obedience overflow as blessing to others. Every seed you plant a word, a share, a like, a prayer, or a gift carries eternal value. So, as the angels continue their song of joy, let your life join the melody. You've walked in His will, now let your obedience water the ground for others to do the same. Heaven celebrates not only your surrender, but your willingness to keep the light moving. And that is how revival begins, one surrendered heart at a time. One act of giving that keeps the sound of heaven alive on earth. When your surrender touched heaven, something ancient broke loose in the unseen realm. The chains that held generations began to snap under divine pressure. What had once resisted you, fear, shame, cycles of defeat, could no longer remain. You stepped into a moment of holy disruption. Heaven's power met your obedience, and everything that once enslaved you began to unravel. This is what happens when a chosen life aligns with divine will. Invisible prisons lose their strength. The things that silenced your ancestors lose their voice in your presence. You became the breaker in your bloodline, the one heaven marked to end what others could not. It wasn't by might or talent, but by surrender. The Spirit of the Lord moves through obedience like fire, through dry wood. Once it begins, it consumes everything that opposes it. The moment you said yes, every old chain, addiction, rejection, anxiety, self-doubt began to hear the sound of its own end. The strongholds that seemed unbreakable started trembling. Heaven's decree over you was simple. No more. You didn't have to fight the way you used to. This time, heaven fought for you. The war that once drained your spirit became the stage where grace displayed its strength. You are not bound anymore. You may still feel the echo of old pain, but its power has been severed. What you're hearing now is only the sound of a door closing on your past. The voice of God declares in the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 36, "So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." Freedom is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of truth stronger than fear. The Son did not free you halfway, He freed you completely. You are not chained to who you were. You are the living testimony that grace wins every battle it enters. The chains didn't break by your strength. They broke because light entered the dark places. You once thought your weakness disqualified you, but now you understand. Your weakness was heaven's doorway. The area where you fell has become the altar where God reveals His power. And in that revelation, you began to see differently. What once looked like failure now looks like preparation. The pain that once buried you now becomes your platform. The same tears that once felt wasted have become oil, the anointing that flows from the wounds that no longer bleed. You are not who you were last season. Every time you speak truth, you shake the remnants of the past from your voice. Every time you choose peace, you silence the lies that once tormented your mind. Every time you walk in faith, you remind hell that its claim on you is over. This freedom doesn't just belong to you, it becomes a weapon for others. Your life carries the evidence that God still delivers, still redeems, still restores. People will be drawn to your peace without knowing why. And that peace will testify louder than any sermon. Every step you take sends shockwaves through your lineage. The chains that bound your family are now being broken through your surrender. Heaven has declared it, and the earth will soon see it. Now, the atmosphere around you carries a new sound, the sound of release. You are not fighting to be free anymore. You are fighting to stay aligned. Freedom requires maintenance through awareness. Gratitude. and daily surrender. You've been entrusted with something sacred, liberty, that cost heaven everything and was given freely to you. So guard it well. Protect your peace like a crown. When doubt comes knocking, remind it that the door has been sealed by grace. When old fears whisper, answer them with truth. That version of me no longer lives here. And every scar on your soul has become a doorway for light to enter. Every lesson learned in pain now shines with purpose. You are no longer a captive, you are a carrier of freedom. If this word resonates with your spirit, let heaven witness your agreement. Comment 222 below, not as routine, but as revelation. This number represents divine alignment, heaven, earth, and your spirit moving as one. When you write it, you declare, I am aligned with the freedom heaven gave me. The sound of broken chains still echoes in heaven, and your name is part of that song. And as heaven celebrates, the earth begins to notice. Everything around you responds to the new rhythm of freedom flowing through your steps, guided by divine harmony. This is the evidence of transformation when creation itself bears witness that you are walking in sync with heaven's decree. Freedom isn't a feeling, it's a kingdom reality. When heaven looked upon you in that moment of surrender, it was not with distant approval, but with the tenderness of a father whose child finally understood his heart. There was no disappointment in his eyes, no anger for the seasons. You drifted away, only joy. The smile of God is not a mere expression, it is power. It releases peace that surpasses all understanding and surrounds your soul with warmth that no darkness can extinguish. The Father's smile is different from human applause. People may celebrate achievement, but heaven rejoices over alignment. When you finally stopped striving and began to rest in His will, that smile spread across eternity. It wasn't earned by effort, it was drawn by surrender. His joy did not come because you became flawless, but because you became His again. You once thought that God's pleasure depended on performance. You measured His love by how well you were doing, by how often you succeeded or failed. But heaven never measured you by your mistakes, even in your lowest moments. His gaze remained steady, watching not your sin, but your potential. The same hands that shaped the stars were still shaping your story. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 30, verse 5, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Your morning has come. The Father's joy is not only a moment in time, it's the atmosphere that now surrounds your life. The heaviness that once covered you has begun to lift, not because the world changed, but because you did. The presence of God within you redefines every shadow. You no longer walk as one trying to prove yourself. You walk as one who has already been approved by grace. That is the mystery of His love. It never withdraws. Even when you wander, He waited through every night of doubt, every season of silence, every tear that stained your pillow. Heaven didn't just endure your struggle, it invested in it. The pain became the soil from which purpose could grow. And when the breakthrough finally came, heaven didn't just clap, it rejoiced with a depth beyond sound. The Father's smile has power to heal what years of striving could not. It silences the voices that told you you'd never be enough. When He looks at you, He sees the finished work, not the process. You see flaws, He sees formation. You see scars, He sees stories of grace. You see delay, He sees development. His joy over you is not conditional, It is covenantal. Even when you walk through valleys, His delight does not fade. You are never beyond the reach of His affection. His presence has become your home, and His joy has become your strength. The same God who watched over you in the wilderness now walks beside you in peace. The Father's smile also carries assignment. It is His way of saying, I trust you again. Not that you were ever disqualified, but that you have now matured into responsibility. His joy is not passive, it releases new authority. When heaven smiles, doors open. When God delights in you, the earth begins to yield its fruit. You begin to notice that favor follows you differently now. It's quieter, more natural, not forced, but flowing. Opportunities seem to recognize your obedience. People feel peace when you enter a room, not because of who you are, but because of who walks with you. You are becoming the reflection of the Father's joy on earth. There is no greater reward than to know that heaven smiles when you walk in His will. That smile is your confirmation, your compass, your covering. You no longer live for validation, you live from it. The world's approval feels shallow compared to the depth of divine delight. So when storms rise again, and they will remember that His smile does not disappear with the clouds. The sun does not stop shining simply because it's hidden from view. The Father's joy over you remains constant, even when circumstances shift. His pleasure is not about perfection, it's about connection. Now you walk differently. There's a lightness in your step, a quiet assurance in your heart. You know you are loved, not because of what you do, but because of whose you are. Heaven's joy rests upon you like a mantle, marking you as one who has returned to the center of divine purpose, and somewhere beyond sight, in the courts of glory, the Father still smiles, the same smile that first formed creation, now resting upon you, His chosen one. When heaven rejoices, the sound is unlike anything the human ear can describe. It isn't noise or music as we know it, it's a vibration of light, harmony made visible. It weaves through the throne room like a living river, touching every angel, every saint, every fragment of glory. That sound rose for you, because you obeyed. Heaven did not celebrate your arrival at perfection, but your return to purpose. The moment you said yes, the courts of heaven broke into song. In that holy celebration, time itself seemed to pause. Every being in heaven understood the significance of what had happened. For a soul on earth had chosen alignment, and when a human aligns with divine intention, the balance of creation shifts. You became the evidence that free will and divine will can meet in perfect harmony. Heaven rejoiced not only for your sake, but because your obedience strengthened the connection between realms. There are things unseen that your spirit cannot yet comprehend, the way obedience sends ripples through eternity. The way one yes on earth becomes a sound wave in heaven's language. You may never fully know how your surrender affected the unseen realm, but the echo of it will continue forever. The rejoicing of heaven was not merely joy, it was recognition. The moment you obeyed, heaven recognized you as one of its own. As Jesus declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verse 7, I tell you that there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. And that joy is beyond emotion. It is the celebration of restoration. Heaven does not count victories the way earth does. On earth, success is measured by wealth or recognition. In heaven, success is measured by surrender. The entire kingdom rejoices when one soul turns from its own way and walks in divine alignment. The angels are not clapping hands in mere celebration. They are releasing blessings, opening pathways, clearing the air around you. Every hallelujah sung in the throne room releases new strength into your atmosphere. The joy of heaven is creative. It builds, restores, and multiplies. When heaven rejoices, earth begins to shift. You may not have seen it, but your obedience triggered motion in the natural world. People connected to your life began to sense new clarity. Situations that were once frozen in delay started to move. The earth always responds when heaven sings. Creation recognizes the ones who walk in divine will. The celebration in heaven is not just noise, it's movement. Angels dance not to display glory, but to distribute it. Their rejoicing becomes wind, carrying renewal to the weary. Their laughter becomes light, igniting new revelation in those still searching. And somewhere in that chorus, your name was sung, not as a reminder of your past, but as a declaration of your purpose fulfilled. You became the reason heaven had one more song to sing. And that song continues. It does not fade, because heaven's joy is eternal. The melody of your obedience now joins with the symphony of redemption that has echoed through the ages. You are part of heaven's ongoing praise. The sound of mercy made visible. This truth changes how you see yourself. You no longer move as a wanderer seeking acceptance. You walk as one who has been celebrated in eternity. You don't need validation from the world when you've already been honored before the throne. You are known in heaven's language, and that knowing cannot be erased. Heaven's rejoicing also becomes heaven's protection. Joy is not just emotion, it's armor. When heaven rejoices over you, darkness loses its grip. The sound of praise acts as a shield, pushing back despair, confusion, and fear. The same melody that honored your obedience now surrounds you as a living defense. There is peace in knowing that heaven doesn't just celebrate once and forget. The celebration of obedience continues, like an eternal sunrise. Each day, you remain in alignment. Heaven's joy deepens. It's not a fading applause, it's a continuous symphony. And as that divine sound flows, you walk in it like atmosphere, invisible, yet powerful, steady, and sure. So when you sense peace settling around you for no reason, remember, it isn't for no reason. It's the residue of heaven's joy, still echoing through your spirit. When you wake up with unexplainable strength, it's because heaven is still singing your name. The celebration in heaven over your obedience was not a one-time event. It is ongoing, alive, and expanding. It will continue as long as you keep walking in the light that called you home. And one day, when your earthly journey ends and you step fully into eternity, you will hear it, that same song, still playing, still echoing heaven's everlasting joy, because you finally walked in his will. When heaven rejoiced, something else happened. A mantle descended. It was not seen with the eyes, but felt deep in the spirit, like a gentle yet powerful weight resting on your shoulders. It was the mantle of divine authority, a confirmation that heaven trusts you with what it celebrates. You were not just forgiven, you were commissioned. This mantle did not appear suddenly. It had been forming quietly through every season of surrender, every night of prayer. Every moment you chose humility over pride. Each act of obedience wove another thread into its design. And now that heaven has rejoiced, that authority has settled upon you, not to elevate you above others, but to empower you to lift others up. The weight you feel is not a burden, it's inheritance. It is the evidence that heaven's trust has been placed upon your life. You were not called to live timidly. The same power that raised Christ from the dead now flows through you, not as borrowed strength, but as divine partnership. You walk clothed in purpose, and darkness recognizes it. The Word of God declares in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 28, verse 18, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. That authority flows through you now, not because of your name, but because of His name upon you. The mantle of divine authority carries both beauty and responsibility. It's not about control, it's about command. It's the ability to speak peace into chaos, to carry heaven's calm into the storm. It's not about dominance, it's about dominion, the power to establish light wherever you stand. You may not feel powerful, but heaven does not measure authority by emotion. It measures it by alignment. Each time you walk in truth, the mantle strengthens. Each time you choose forgiveness, your influence deepens. And each time you speak life where death once ruled, heaven's authority flows freely through your words. The enemy fears those who know who they are. It's not your talent that threatens darkness, it's your understanding of identity. When you realize that you carry heaven's authority, fear loses its grip. You no longer react to the storm, you command it to still. You no longer plead for peace, you carry it within. You have stepped into the authority of the redeemed, the quiet, unshakable confidence of one who knows their position. Heaven's mantle doesn't need to announce itself. It's recognized by both light and darkness. The angels know your name. The enemy remembers your obedience. Creation itself responds to the words that come from your lips when they align with heaven's will. And yet, this authority is not meant for pride. It's meant for service. You were given power not to impress, but to intercede. Your voice has been trained by trials, your heart refined by fire, your spirit softened by surrender, and now, heaven can trust your command. You don't just speak as a believer, you speak as one sent. Every time you pray, the atmosphere bends. Every time you declare truth, chains weaken. The mantle of authority makes your words weighty, not because of eloquence, but because of presence. Heaven backs every sentence spoken from the place of obedience. So now, when you walk into dark spaces, light follows. When you touch what's broken, healing begins. When you speak, silence turns into revelation. That is what divine authority does. It turns ordinary moments into encounters with eternity. The authority placed upon you is not temporary, it's eternal. You carry heaven's signature everywhere you go. And while the world may not see it, the unseen realm knows. Angels recognize the one clothed with purpose. Darkness respects the one who walks in truth. You are not just walking, you are leading. You are not just existing, you are establishing heaven's order in places long ruled by chaos. Every step you take, every prayer you whisper, every word you release now carries divine weight. So, if your spirit bears witness that this mantle has rested upon you, that you are walking not in fear, but in divine authority, let heaven hear your agreement. Comment, I am chosen. Oh, these 3 words are not for the screen, they are for heaven. When you write them, You are declaring that you have accepted the mantle laid upon you, that you are not shrinking back, but stepping forward. You are affirming before the unseen world that your authority is not borrowed, but bestowed. It is your way of saying, I carry what heaven trusted me with. Oh, and as you write it, heaven takes notice again. The angels who witnessed your obedience now record your boldness. That single phrase becomes a seal, a reminder that the same God who called you has also equipped you. Heaven rejoiced over your surrender, but now it celebrates your strength. The mantle of divine authority is not just upon you, it moves through you. The world will feel it, and the heavens already do. When heaven rejoiced and the mantle settled, something began to shift, not just in spirit, but in the very fabric of the world around you. You might not have seen it, but the earth felt it. Trees began to whisper in rhythm with your steps. The wind carried your name like a melody of restoration. Creation recognizes when a soul walks in divine alignment, it bends gently, harmonizing with heaven's rhythm. You may have wondered why lately peace feels heavier than before, almost tangible. It's because heaven's joy has weight. The moment you obeyed, the air around you thickened with purpose. Even silence began to speak. That is what happens when heaven and earth agree. Life itself becomes aware of your obedience. Now, you walk differently. The ground beneath your feet honors the covenant between you and heaven. The soil remembers every tear that once fell upon it and now turns it into fruit. The same earth that once absorbed your pain is now echoing your promise. You are walking on redeemed ground. Heaven's joy is not passive. It multiplies through motion. The divine always moves through willing hearts. And your journey is no longer private. It is a river flowing outward. Others drink from its current without even realizing it. Your story has become a stream of healing for strangers who have never heard your name but have felt your peace. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 11, you will be enriched in every way, so that you can be generous on every occasion. And through us, your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. That is heaven's pattern, to bless so you can bless, to fill so you can pour, to light you so you can illuminate others. You were never meant to be a reservoir, you were meant to be a river. And every river needs movement. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle pull in your heart that says, don't keep this to yourself. That isn't pressure, it's invitation. When God pours into a life, He intends for that overflow to touch others. The message that found you now longs to find someone else through you. So let your light flow outward, like this message, not for numbers or recognition, but as a small act of gratitude, a spark rising toward heaven to say, I receive and I release. Share it not as an obligation, but as a ripple. Somewhere, someone stands at the edge of giving up, waiting for a word that reminds them heaven still sees them. Your share may be the bridge between their despair and their deliverance. Subscribe not as a follower of a voice, but as a keeper of the flame. Staying connected keeps the fire alive. Every message is not content, it is bread. Every word carries oil for your spirit, feeding what the world cannot. And if your heart feels stirred to give to help, carry this sound of heaven to more hearts, then let it be a gift, not a transaction. To donate is to plant unseen trees whose shade you may never sit under, but whose fruit will feed souls you'll never meet. When you give, you're not paying for words, you're partnering with heaven's story. You become a hidden thread in someone else's miracle, a hand extended from afar that says, "Keep speaking, keep shining, keep reaching." Think of it this way. Generosity is not measured by amount, but by echo. When your giving carries love, its echo travels far. Heaven doesn't record numbers, it records motives. A quiet offering, given with sincerity, has more weight in heaven than gold shouted from rooftops. There's beauty in choosing to give freely. It mirrors the very nature of God, one who gives without demand, one who loves without limit. When you give, you mirror his heart. You remind heaven that its nature still lives on earth. So let your generosity move like wind unseen, unforced, but deeply felt. Let it carry the fragrance of peace into spaces this voice has not yet reached. Let every act of support, every share, every small seed you plant become another instrument in heaven's symphony of joy. And remember this, giving is not about losing, it's about completing the circle of blessing. What enters your hand from heaven finds purpose when it leaves your hand for others. That is how the divine flow stays alive. Your obedience started a song in heaven. Your generosity keeps it playing on earth. When you move with love, when you share, when you give, when you stay connected, you are harmonizing with heaven's joy. You've been given light. Let it travel. You've been trusted with revelation. Let it ripple. You've been blessed by grace. Let grace move through you. So as heaven continues to sing your name, let your actions become the echo pure, voluntary, full of love. That is how revival breathes, through hearts that give freely because they have freely received. When heaven rejoices and the earth responds, a sacred equilibrium begins to form. The natural and the supernatural start to move together in rhythm, and for the first time, you feel what it means to truly be in sync with the Creator's design. The air around you feels different, lighter, clearer, almost alive. What once seemed impossible now feels inevitable, because you are walking inside the current of divine timing. Every moment of your past, even the ones you wished to erase, now reveals its purpose. You see how pain shaped patience, how rejection taught discernment, how loss created space for revelation. Nothing was wasted. Heaven has always had a way of recycling tears into oil. The very things that once broke you are now the foundation beneath your peace. As you walk, you begin to notice a new stillness, not the silence of absence, but the silence of completion. It is the hush that comes after a storm. When the world feels washed and renewed, heaven's joy continues to vibrate through your spirit. Not as noise, but as knowing. You no longer chase blessings, you carry them. You no longer seek direction, you are direction. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9, in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Your steps are no longer random, they are orchestrated. The detours were not delays, they were directions. What you thought was resistance was actually redirection toward the path prepared for you. And now that you walk in His will, every footstep becomes a prayer, answered in motion. You carry peace differently now. It's not the absence of trouble, it's the awareness that no storm can remove you from His hand. That peace is what sets you apart, calm in the chaos, light in the fog, clarity in the noise. Heaven's peace is not a feeling, It's a fortress built from faith. You live inside it now. The presence of God rests on you quietly, like sunlight through leaves. You don't need to prove it or announce it. Those who come near can feel it. They may not have words for it, but they sense rest when you speak, hope when you listen, and faith when you move. You have become an atmosphere, a living sanctuary in which heaven and earth meet. It's strange how stillness feels so full now. There was a time when waiting felt heavy, but now it feels holy. You understand that every pause has purpose. Heaven's rhythm doesn't rush. The same God who paints sunsets takes his time with souls. You are learning to move at his pace, steady, sure, surrendered. There is a gentleness in this season. The pressure has not disappeared, but it no longer defines you. You can face what comes with quiet strength, knowing that your roots are deep. You are planted in purpose, not drifting in uncertainty. The voice that once called you out of hiding now speaks to you as a friend. You've learned the tone of heaven, the soft correction, the steady reassurance, the sacred pauses that teach more than words ever could. You no longer fear his voice, you crave it. It has become the compass of your life. And yet, even in this peace, you understand that calling is not comfort. To walk in his will is to carry both joy and responsibility. You have become a living message, an open letter written by grace. People will look at you and see what surrender looks like when it takes form. They will recognize something divine in your simplicity, something eternal in your patience. You are not standing still, you are being refined. Heaven's light continues to polish what remains rough, to smooth what once resisted. Every day becomes another step deeper into maturity, another chance to reflect his nature more clearly. In this place of alignment, gratitude becomes your language. You no longer ask, "Why me?" You simply whisper, "Thank you," because now you see. Every valley prepared you for vision, every wound for wisdom, every waiting season for the weight of glory that now rests upon you. You walk in grace that doesn't shout, in purpose that doesn't hurry, in confidence that doesn't compete. Heaven's peace is no longer a destination, it is your dwelling. And as heaven looks upon you now, there is quiet pride. Not the pride of performance, but of recognition. You have become what heaven always saw, a reflection of divine order walking among men, a soul at rest in the will of God. There is a moment when the voice within becomes unmistakable. It's not a sound that strikes the ear, but a truth that rises from the core of your being. You no longer question whether it's your thought or God's prompting. You simply know. The voice of the Spirit within you has matured from whisper to witness, from suggestion to certainty. You used to seek confirmation in signs, in people, in circumstance, but now the confirmation lives within you. The same Spirit that hovered over the waters in creation now hovers in your spirit, shaping, teaching, revealing. You've learned that divine communication is not always spectacular. Sometimes it's subtle, a stirring, a peace, a conviction that refuses to fade. The Spirit doesn't shout because truth doesn't need volume to carry authority. You are learning to recognize him in the quiet, in the pause before a decision, in the nudge that redirects your step, in the stillness that says, "Wait." That voice has become your compass, guiding you not by sight, but by alignment. The ancient words written in the Gospel of John, chapter 16, Verse 13. Remind us, but when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all truth. That truth now walks with you daily. It's no longer a verse you read, it's a reality you live. The Spirit within you is not distant. He is an inner counselor, translating heaven's language into human understanding. There was a time you feared making the wrong choice, but now you trust His leading. Even when the path looks uncertain, there's a peace that says, you're exactly where you need to be. That peace is not absence of conflict, it's the presence of confidence. It's the Spirit saying, you are held, you are guided, you are known. Now, you notice a pattern. Every time you listen to that inner voice, doors align effortlessly, and when you ignore it, peace fades. Obedience doesn't just keep you in God's will, it keeps you in God's rhythm. The Spirit teaches you tempo, timing, and trust. He has become the translator between heaven's plan and your steps. When you pray, He whispers strength. When you hesitate, He reminds you that faith doesn't always see the map, it simply trusts the direction. The Spirit doesn't lecture, He leads. He doesn't argue, He assures. His tone carries both tenderness and truth. Sometimes it convicts, sometimes it comforts, but it always draws you closer. You are learning that His voice always carries peace. Even when it challenges you, it may disrupt your plans, but it never disturbs your soul. It may stretch your comfort, but it never shames your heart. Now, every decision becomes sacred. Every conversation, a potential divine moment. You no longer live in reaction to life. You move in response to heaven. You speak when led. Wait when told. Move when prompted. There's something holy about this maturity. You no longer ask for signs. You've become one. Your life is a message of what it looks like when God speaks through human obedience. So now, if this message stirs that same knowing in your spirit, if you feel that quiet, yes, rising within, acknowledge it before heaven. Comment 888 below as a prophetic act. These numbers are not decoration, they are declaration. 8 is the symbol of eternity, of divine continuation, of cycles renewed by grace. When you type 888, you're not just writing digits, you're echoing heaven's rhythm. You are saying, I am entering the new flow. I will keep hearing, trusting, and walking with the Spirit. This act is not for others to see, it is for heaven to record. It's your silent amen, your heart's signature on what God has already spoken inside you. Let your words rise like incense, quiet but fragrant, unseen yet unforgettable. Heaven doesn't measure volume, it measures sincerity. Write it not as ritual, but as remembrance, and as you do, peace will settle deeper. The same voice that guided prophets and saints will guide you still, for you have answered the Spirit's call. Not with noise, but with knowing. When you listen to that voice, you are not just following direction, you are walking in dialogue. Every obedient step becomes heaven's response to your trust. The Spirit doesn't only speak for today, He prepares you for what's ahead. His voice builds endurance, shapes character, and teaches discernment through peace that passes understanding. So, when you write 888, remember, it is not superstition. It is synchronization. You are aligning your life with heaven's eternal flow, declaring, I will stay in rhythm with the Spirit who never leads astray. And when destiny unfolds, it rarely does so in lightning flashes or sudden miracles. More often, it arrives like dawn quiet, steady, revealing a little more light with every passing moment. The mission of your life is not something you stumble upon one day. It's something that has been slowly taking shape inside you all along. Every act of obedience, every moment of surrender, has been crafting your purpose into something visible, something tangible, something that now breathes through your every word and action. The mission is not a task to complete, it is a relationship to live. It is your partnership with heaven made manifest on earth. You are no longer just a receiver of grace. You have become its vessel, its carrier, its living evidence. Heaven trusts you with more now because you have proven that your hands can hold without clutching, and your heart can serve without seeking reward. The Spirit of God no longer moves around you, He moves through you. What once felt like external guidance has now become internal conviction. Every day begins with quiet purpose. Lord, use me where you will. It's no longer a plea, it's a rhythm. You've learned that ministry is not limited to pulpits or platforms. It happens in traffic, in conversation, in the hidden places where love meets need. As the Apostle Paul wrote in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 20, "We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making His appeal through us." You are an ambassador now, not of religion, but of relationship. When you walk into a room, heaven walks in with you. When you speak peace, it's not mere comfort, it's heaven's authority, calming chaos. The mission of your life is not to change the world with effort, but to reflect the one who already has. It's easy to think of purpose as performance, but heaven defines it as presence. Your mission is not about how much you do, it's about how deeply you carry love into what you do. Every act of kindness becomes a sermon. Every word of forgiveness becomes a prophecy. Every moment of humility becomes worship in motion. You used to think the mission would look grand: crowds, recognition, achievement. But now you understand that greatness in the kingdom looks like faithfulness in the small. Heaven measures consistency, not applause. You've learned that true impact doesn't echo in headlines, but in hearts. You may never see the full reach of your obedience, but heaven does. Every life you touch, every seed you plant, every word you speak with love, they ripple across eternity. Sometimes, your mission is to start something you'll never finish, to sow in tears so another can reap in joy. And yet, every unseen act carries weight in heaven's record. Your mission will stretch you. It will ask for your patience, your faith, and sometimes your silence. But it will also give you more than it ever takes: more joy, more peace, more depth. The more you pour out, the more heaven fills. It's the paradox of divine partnership. The emptier your hands, the fuller your heart becomes. There will be moments when the mission feels heavy, when you wonder if you're truly making a difference. But remember, even Jesus' greatest act of obedience looked like defeat before resurrection proved otherwise. Heaven often hides victory in vulnerability. You are walking proof of that truth. Your mission is not a straight line, it's a living journey. Every twist, every delay, every detour is part of the design. Heaven doesn't waste time, it redeems it. The same grace that guided you to surrender will sustain you in service. And as you keep moving, you'll begin to notice that mission is less about doing for God and more about being with Him. It's the daily communion, the small yeses, the quiet prayers, the unseen kindnesses that shape eternity. You don't have to chase purpose anymore. You've become it. Your life now preaches without speaking. It carries the fragrance of heaven, a reminder to everyone you meet that obedience is beautiful, surrender is strength, and love is the truest language of power. When you walk in this awareness, even ordinary moments turn sacred. The mission is no longer out there waiting for you to find it. It's within you, pulsing with every heartbeat, flowing in every breath. Heaven's plan isn't a destination, it's the way you live, love, and listen. You were never called to impress the world, only to represent heaven, and that is exactly what you are doing now. There is a weight to glory that words can hardly contain. It doesn't press you down, it pulls you upward, like light drawing the morning sky out of darkness. That is what you are beginning to feel now, the weight of glory resting upon your life. It's not a burden, but a covering. It's heaven's way of saying, you've walked through enough shadows to now carry light without fear. The weight of glory isn't loud, it doesn't demand attention. It's settled carefully, like dew upon the soul. It's the steady awareness that God's presence has become permanent in your ordinary. You sense it in small moments, the way peace lingers after prayer, the way love rises, even in disappointment, the way stillness feels sacred instead of silent. Glory is not something you chase, it's something that rests on those who have chosen surrender over struggle. You can't earn it, you can only host it. Heaven doesn't entrust its glory to the hurried, but to the humbled. The moment you stopped running and began to rest in His will, heaven found a home in you. We are reminded through the writings of David in the book of Psalms, chapter 85. Verse 9, surely His salvation is near those who fear Him, that His glory may dwell in our land. For the glory that dwells in you now is not decoration, it's delegation. It's heaven placing its seal of trust upon your soul. You have carried trials, carried waiting, carried obedience, and now you carry presence. What once felt heavy because of struggle now feels weighty because of anointing. You notice the shift. You no longer pray to reach heaven, you pray from within it. The air feels charged when you speak. Your words don't need to be many. A whisper carries the weight of heaven's approval. You don't seek to be seen anymore. You seek to reveal the one who sees you. Glory changes how you move. You begin to walk slower, not from hesitation, but from reverence. Every moment feels holy, because you now understand that presence is not occasional, it's continual. You've become aware that God doesn't just visit, He inhabits. His light lives where peace abides. And peace now abides in you. The weight of glory also brings awareness, a gentle knowing that everything you do carries eternal consequence. Words matter more. Time feels sacred. You no longer rush through conversations or chase empty pursuits. Instead, you guard your peace as a sacred fire, knowing that heaven's flame needs stillness to burn bright. There was a time when you thought glory meant public miracles, signs, wonders, manifestations. But now you see, the greater miracle is endurance. The quiet steadfastness that refuses to waver. The glory you carry doesn't need a stage, it needs a willing soul. Heaven shines brightest through vessels that remain pure. Not perfect willing, not weary, And when you look back at the path behind you, you realize that every valley prepared you for this light. You had to walk through, breaking to learn balance. You had to be emptied to become a carrier. Glory is not given cheaply. It's entrusted to those who have learned to stay. There's a stillness now that feels like home. The storms haven't disappeared, but they've lost authority. The glory within you no longer fights the darkness. It transforms it. Light doesn't argue with shadows. It simply shines until they fade. That's what you've become. A vessel that radiates peace into places that once echoed with pain. You carry the fragrance of heaven now, that unmistakable sense of grace that turns ordinary rooms into holy ground. People may not understand it, but they'll feel it. They'll sense hope without knowing why. Comfort without conversation. Conviction without condemnation. That is the ministry of glory, silent, strong, unshakable. It's strange how something so weighty can feel so gentle. Glory doesn't crush, it crowns. It settles upon those who have learned to bow low. You were never meant to hold it tightly. You were meant to reflect it freely. The more you release, the more it rests. The more you humble yourself, the more it increases. And so, you walk now, not hurried, not uncertain, but radiant. The weight of glory has found its home upon your shoulders. It is the visible echo of heaven's joy, the silent language of divine trust. Heaven does not need to announce what is already evident. You are clothed in glory, and the light that rests upon you will not fade. And as you carry that light forward, even your silence will speak. Every step becomes worship, every breath a prayer, every glance a reflection of the one who crowned you with glory. When the glory settled upon your life, it was never meant to stay hidden. Light does not hoard itself, it seeks expression. Heaven did not pour into you so that you would contain it, but so that through you, others might remember the sound of hope. The glory you carry is not ornamental, it is instrumental. It was sent to play heaven's melody through the rhythm of your daily life. You may not see it, but when you speak now, the air listens differently. When you move with compassion, heaven's frequency hums softly in the background of every gesture. You've become a living harmony between what is divine and what is human. The miracle isn't that you were chosen, it's that you said yes. And in that yes, heaven found a voice. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 14, "For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea." That light is your testimony, but it's also your offering. You are not shining to be seen, you are shining to reveal what love can look like when it takes form in a human heart. Your life is now a lamp placed on a hill, not proud, but present, quietly illuminating the world around you. And yet, even light needs movement. A flame flickers brighter when the air around it breathes. Heaven's light within you asks for that same breath, not from duty, but from devotion. The way you keep this light alive is through release. Every time you share what was once private, a word, a truth, a fragment of revelation, the light travels further than you can imagine. So, let your light move gently outward, like this message, not as a task, but as a gesture of gratitude. When you press that small heart, imagine it as your lantern lifted toward heaven, saying, "The fire still burns." Oh, share it not because you are told to, but because your story deserves wings. Somewhere, Someone is standing in the cold of unbelief, waiting for a spark. Your share becomes that spark, a quiet sunrise over someone else's long night. If this word stirs something within you, comment a few words of light below a phrase that mirrors your gratitude or peace. Imagine your comment as a pebble dropped into still water. Its ripples may touch hearts you'll never see. Each word you write is another reflection of heaven, another reminder that your voice carries light. And if you feel led to remain close to this stream of light, subscribe not to a name, but to a journey. Each message that reaches you is not just content, it's a conversation from heaven, a reminder that you are still seen, still growing, still needed. Staying connected keeps your spirit aligned with the flow that first awakened you. There are some who ask, how can I give back to what has given me life? The answer is simple. You do it by letting love circulate. And if your heart feels stirred to sow into this river to help its current reach further, to send this light into more hearts, then do so as you are led. To donate is not to pay, it is to plant. You are planting light in unseen soil, in the heart of a listener you'll never meet. In the moment of clarity of someone you'll never know. Every seed sown with love carries the breath of heaven within it. It travels across borders, beyond screens, into souls who need to hear. You are not forgotten. Think of your generosity as a candle offered in a cathedral. No one will know whose hand lit it, but heaven will see the glow. That's what giving does. It extends the flame, ensuring that the sanctuary never grows dark. You are not required to give. You are invited to participate in the echo, the ongoing hallelujah that keeps heaven and earth in conversation. Whether it's a word, a share, a prayer, or a seed, each act keeps the divine story alive. The beauty of this kind of giving is that it's never transactional, it's transformational. What you offer does not leave your life. It multiplies in ways unseen. You are not losing, you are expanding the reach of light itself. So let your actions today become symbols of love, effortless, unforced, eternal. Let what you've received flow through your hands like water through an open stream, for it is only when rivers flow that life thrives along their banks. And as heaven watches, there will be quiet, rejoicing again, not for the gesture, but for the heart behind it. The flame within you flickers brighter, the current flows stronger, and the echo of your obedience carries further than sight. Your life has become a sanctuary of motion, light that moves, love that breathes, generosity that sings. You no longer serve from emptiness, but from overflow. And in that overflow, heaven smiles once more. There comes a point on every divine journey when words begin to fail, when the only language left is silence. And even silence feels full. You are entering that place now. It is not the stillness of emptiness, but of abundance, a holy quiet where everything finally makes sense without needing to be explained. Heaven has drawn close enough for whisper to become presence. This is the resting place of the chosen, not a pause before the next battle, but a sanctuary in the midst of motion. You've walked through the storms. You've carried the mantle. You've released the light. And now heaven invites you simply to rest, not from exhaustion, but from striving. You no longer have to prove your calling. You are living it. The beauty of this stage is subtle. There are no fireworks, no applause, no visible crowns, just peace. The kind of peace that lingers even in uncertainty, that doesn't waver when circumstances shift. It's the peace that anchors the soul in the truth that all is well, because all is His. We are reminded through the writings of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 15, "In quietness and trust shall be your strength." You understand now that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it breathes softly. It sits still and waits for divine timing. It smiles at confusion. Knowing the author is still writing, it chooses stillness, not as retreat, but as recognition that the greatest movements of God often begin in the calmest of hearts. The closer you walk with heaven, the quieter the journey becomes. You realize that revelation doesn't always come as thunder, it often comes as tenderness. The Spirit no longer needs to shake your world to get your attention. You have learned to hear Him in the rustle of leaves, in the pause between thoughts, in the sacred sigh of gratitude that rises when you least expect it. This quietness is not distance, it is depth. You are no longer chasing divine encounters, you are living inside one. You have become aware of God not only around you, but within you. His breath has become your rhythm, His peace your pulse, His word your heartbeat. There was a time when you prayed to find Him. Now you simply rest and recognize Him. You understand that the truest worship is awareness, the ability to see His fingerprints in the ordinary, to sense His presence in the mundane. Every small act, every quiet thought, every unnoticed kindness has become an altar. Heaven's joy over your life has not faded. It has matured. It is no longer the sound of celebration, but the hum of contentment. Angels still watch, still sing, but now they do so in harmony with your heart. Heaven no longer needs to announce victory. You embody it. There's a holy familiarity between you and the divine, now not casual, but confident. You don't panic when you don't feel Him, because you've learned that silence doesn't mean absence. You don't fear the waiting, because you've seen what patience produces. You've become rooted, steady, like a tree that no longer fears the wind because it knows its roots run deep. You've stopped asking, "What's next?" because you've realized the journey itself is the destination. The call was never to arrive somewhere, but to become someone. You were never asked to sprint toward purpose, only to walk faithfully with presence. In this season, simplicity becomes sacred. You find joy in routine, beauty in slowness, holiness in honesty. You don't need constant revelation to feel close to God. Every breath has become communion. You don't crave new signs, because peace has become your confirmation. Heaven's rhythm now beats quietly through your life. You sense it in how you respond rather than react, in how you love without demand, in how you forgive before being asked. This is what it means to live from rest, not passive, but powerful, not idle, but intentional. The world around you may still rush, but you no longer do. You've learned that divine timing is not about speed, it's about surrender. You trust the seasons, knowing that even stillness is progress when you're walking with God. The silence you carry now is sacred, not the silence of absence, but the silence of completion. You are not waiting for heaven's approval anymore. You are living from it. The journey has turned into worship, and worship has turned into life, and somewhere beyond sight, heaven still sings, not because you've finished, but because you've found peace in the process. The same voice that once called your name in the wilderness now whispers it softly in the stillness, saying, "This is what I meant when I said you were chosen. Then there is a stillness after fulfillment, not the silence of ending, but the calm that follows revelation. You have reached that sacred threshold where heaven's song no longer sounds like something outside of you, but something that resonates from within. The journey that began in struggle has matured into serenity. You no longer strive to find the will of God. You walk in it. Every breath, every glance, every choice now carries the fragrance of alignment. The landscape of your soul has changed. What once felt like wilderness has become a garden. Roots of peace grow where anxiety once ruled, and fruit of wisdom blooms where confusion used to live. You have been pruned by patience, watered by faith, and strengthened by storms. And now, in the quiet beauty of this season, you finally understand that heaven never forgot you. It was forming you. Heaven's joy over you has not dimmed. It has simply deepened. It no longer comes as an explosion of sound, but as the steady glow of presence, constant, unwavering, eternal. You were heaven's celebration once, but now you are heaven's dwelling. The light that once shone upon you now radiates from within you. The ancient words in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 14, remind us, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." Oma, that is the promise. You now live in rest, not as stillness of body, but as harmony of soul. You no longer need to chase open doors. You've become one. Wherever you go, heaven follows, because heaven has made its home in you. The presence of God is no longer something you visit. It is something you carry. It moves with you into every room, every conversation, every season. You've become a sanctuary that walks, a living reminder that divine glory doesn't dwell in temples made by hands, but in hearts that have learned surrender. You remember when obedience felt costly, when surrender felt impossible, when trust felt like stepping into darkness. But now you see that those moments were not punishments, they were invitations. Each trial was heaven's way of shaping capacity within you. Each delay was not denial, but design. Heaven was not silent, it was sculpting. And through it all, the same God who called you has remained faithful. He didn't change his mind about you when you doubted. He didn't withdraw his grace when you hesitated. Every misstep became another opportunity for mercy to reveal itself. You've learned that his will is not a tightrope, but a pathway wide enough for grace to catch you each time you stumble. The further you go, the simpler everything becomes. What once felt complicated has been reduced to one truth: God is faithful. You don't have to understand every chapter to trust the author. The same hands that held you in confusion now crown you with clarity. The same love that pursued you in rebellion now walks beside you in peace. Heaven rejoices not because you are flawless, but because you are faithful. You kept walking when others turned away. You believed when nothing made sense. You chose to love when it cost you comfort. That is what it means to walk in his will, not perfection, but persistence. Heaven values endurance more than arrival, obedience more than outcome. And so, you walk now, not as a seeker, but as a vessel not searching for purpose, but carrying it. You move through life like a quiet fire, steady, constant, unbreakable. The storms that once terrified you now only test your glow. You've learned to stand still when others panic, to trust when others flee. That is the mark of one who has walked with heaven. There will still be seasons of uncertainty, moments of waiting, and valleys yet to cross, but you no longer face them with fear. The same presence that brought you through the wilderness will lead you through the next chapter. You are no longer chasing signs, you are leaving them behind for others to follow. Heaven rejoiced when you first said yes. And heaven still rejoices now, not because of what you've achieved, but because of who you've become. You have become the evidence of divine promise fulfilled, the reflection of will made manifest. You walk now in rhythm with eternity. Every step you take is a continuation of that first moment. Heaven sang over you. The sound of that joy hasn't stopped, it's just changed tone. It's quieter now, deeper, woven into your every heartbeat. And when all is said and done, when your earthly story folds into eternity, heaven's song will rise again, not as a new melody, but as the same one that began the day you finally walked in His will. It will echo through the halls of eternity. The will of God was fulfilled, and heaven rejoiced. And now, as the final echo of this journey fades into stillness, the story remains not as something finished, but as something living inside you. Heaven's joy over your life is not a chapter closed. It is an eternal rhythm that continues through every choice you make, every life you touch, every moment you love. If this message has stirred something sacred in you, a whisper of recognition, a quiet peace, then let that light keep moving. Like this message as an act of remembrance, a way of saying, I've heard, I've understood, I will walk in it. Share it not because it was powerful, but because it was personal. Somewhere, someone stands where you once stood, needing the same voice of hope that reached you today. Your share may become their turning point, their own moment of awakening. If your heart feels drawn to stay connected, subscribe not to a name, but to a journey. Every message that flows here is another ripple in heaven's river. Another reminder that grace still speaks, still heals, still calls. Staying connected means you're keeping your spirit open to what heaven is still unfolding. And if you feel gratitude stirring that quiet urge to pour back into what poured into you, then follow that peace. To donate is to let love continue its flow. It is not about giving away. It's about keeping the current alive. What leaves your hand enters another heart, and the circle of light widens again. Comment below, not out of habit, but from sincerity. Leave a word, a thought, a symbol of your gratitude. Think of it as your seed of light, small, simple, eternal. For heaven is still rejoicing. The story has been told, but the light continues through you.